Hello everyone, this is Chris with Overclockers Club. We've got something new here from TerraMaster. Okay, so this is brand new. This is the F2-212. They make an F4-212 also. That is a 4-bay unit. This is a 2-bay unit, and it's sort of an upgrade here from the F2-210. And a little later, I'll bring up the spec sheets here for these two units and compare them so you can see what the differences are. Again, this is the F2-210 and this is the F2-212, so we can get this one out of the box now. Now, if you're new to the server world, these little units here are nice because you can put all of your data, pictures, videos, whatever you need to store on one of these little NAS units. And NAS, NAS stands for Network Attached Storage or Network Accessible Storage. But you can put all your data on here and everybody on your home network can access it. So there's the unit. Now you can see there's quite a difference here between the two already looking at them. So it'll be interesting to see what else they've upgraded. But that's the beauty of these little personal NAS units. Now, TerraMaster makes small, I'll call these like entry-level units. They're fairly inexpensive. And they've got ones for home office, which are a little more expensive, and they have a wider feature set. And then they've got enterprise units that are very expensive compared to the home stuff. But today we're looking at more of the home personal use sort of stuff. So there's the unit. You've got a power supply. Looks like this is 12 volts, 4 amps on the power supply there. Comes with an Ethernet cable, some stickers to label your hard drives to sort of keep track of your hard drives, and some screws for mounting the hard drives to the hard drive trays. And what else? Okay, installation guide. You can scan the QR code and it will show you how to do the installation, and I'll go over that here in a little bit. It's pretty straightforward, but if you've never done it before, it can be a little tricky. Here's your warranty guide. Lots of excitement there. And on that note, it does come with a 2-year warranty, and if you register, you get a 6-month extension on that, so why not? Okay, so back to the unit here. Now, these come without hard drives, so they are basically empty here. Let's see how these come. Okay, oh, that's a little different. Oh, that's nice. Oh yeah, I like that. The reason I say that, and there's nothing wrong with the old way, but these are a little harder to get out. So they're the hard drives I've got on this unit. But you can see the way these sort of snap in, and these units here, they're spring loaded. So that's a nice way. Oh yeah, they just pop right in. So there's nothing to lock in. They lock in automatically. All right. Now on the front you can see, it's a little hard to see, but it does say F2-212 right there if you get it in the light just right. And the F2-210 does not say anything on the front. I don't know if it says anything on the back. No, it doesn't tell you what unit it is, except for on the bottom. So it does say it on the bottom tag there. Not that that's a showstopper by any means, but the other difference is it looks like we've got a power light, and then a hard drive 1, hard drive 2 activity light, which is basically what we've got here. We've got here goes my fan. We've got a network activity light, power light, and a couple of hard drive activity lights. So looks like there might not be a network activity light. So on the back, oh, I see what else they've done. They've moved the power button. So the power button was on the front. Power button on this one is now on the back. Got two USB ports. There's your Ethernet port, and then the port for the power. Fan, exhaust. So the side of this is actually, you can see this is vented, so it can pull air in from the side, both sides, to help keep the hard drives cool. There's some venting on the bottom, and of course, even with the drives plugged in, there's enough of a gap around here that it will help pull air in past the hard drives and keep them cool too. And here on the side there's a tag that says they're basically available 24 hours. You can scan the QR code. And you know, the times that I've had to contact TerraMaster with any issues or problems, they've been responsive. I've been able to get my questions answered, any problems resolved very quickly. So my experience with the customer service has been good. And I think I will go ahead and take the cover off here and take a look at the inside. Now, if you do scan this QR code, this is what you see here. It takes you to a little support page with a nice installation guide, some video guides, and general help. So, very nice. Something else that I noticed that they've done, the overall frame on this is a little larger than the F2-210. As you can see, it's a little taller. As far as the width, it is about the same width. And the length, it is just a little bit longer, not much. In fact, actually, when we look at it, it is the same overall length here because the fan on the F2-210 little fan housing protrudes a little bit, so it makes the overall length between these two about the same. But the other thing is, this housing here is plastic, whereas the old housing here is aluminum. Not that that matters, but I will take some of these screws out here and see how much trouble I can get into. Usually these come apart pretty easily. It's fairly straightforward. So there are 3 screws at the top, 3 at the bottom, and let's see how this comes apart. Now normally this isn't anything you would ever need to do on your own, but I'm just doing this so we can see what's going on inside. Okay, so this comes apart a little differently than this unit over here, as I recall. Okay, so what they've done is now they've screwed the chassis to the other half of the shell here. So that's a little different, and there really isn't any reason to take the chassis off because there's nothing to see. Really all you have are the drive bays down in there, so there's really nothing else to see by taking the assembly apart any further. Okay, so the back chassis here with the fan comes off, so it looks like I can carefully unplug the fan. I can take the whole thing apart. There we go. All right, so there's really not a whole lot to see. Now, some of the larger units will have memory that is expandable. This one does not. It has 1 gigabyte of onboard memory, and that is it, which is fine. So let's see. All right, there's a heat sink down in there, and that's really about all there is to see. And it's a 4-pin PWM fan. So I guess we'll just go ahead and put this back together. Actually, let me walk that back a notch. I'm going to go ahead and take this off so we can see the other side of the main board. Like I said earlier, there's nothing serviceable here, and the memory is on board, so you can't really change it. Now this plugs in, so this is the header here for your circuit board that are for the where the 2 hard drives dock. And then here's the heat sink for your CPU. These should be your memory, onboard memory chips there, and again, they are permanently soldered to the board. And then it's got a little battery there, standard CR2032 to maintain memory. And that's really about all there is to see, so we'll just go ahead and button this back up. Make sure I get that pushed back into the slot and get it back together. And as I'm putting this back together, if you recall earlier, I was looking at the front panel here, trying to determine how many possible LEDs were there compared to the old unit here. And it looks like they've got a potential of 5, but they're only using 3. The top 2 here, and then the very bottom one, so the 2 here in the middle are not being used. But if we look at the way this is configured, you can see there are LEDs on the board here, and there's one there, and then there are 2 empty ones, but it looks like they are possibly used for other models, but not this one. So we'll go ahead and get this back together. Get the screws in. There we go. Whoops. And the back falls out. All right, there we go. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is you go to the website and you download the TOS installation, and there's a little program that you download, and it finds this unit after you plug it in. And you only need to do that the very first time you fire it up. And that is called, if we look up here, it's the TNAS PC app. It's hard to read, I know, without zooming in, but you go to their download page, and you want the one for Windows if you're using Windows. They've got one for Mac, and they've got one for Ubuntu also. But you download that, install it, run it. After you plug the unit in, it finds it, and then it does the initialization. Now you want to start with 2 fresh hard drives, and I'll be taking the drives here out of the other unit here, the F2-210 that I've already used. But these are a couple of Western Digital 6 terabyte. You can use Seagate or Western Digital, or but I've had pretty good luck with Western Digital units. Now you want to start with 2 fresh drives that don't have any data on them. If you do have any data, it will be wiped out. So you want to start fresh. But after you put the PC app, it finds the unit. You can initialize the disks. It will get the TOS operating system installed and up and running, and I'll sort of walk through that. Another nice thing is they've gone to a toolless hard drive tray installation. So as I remove these hard drives from the old trays, so there's the hard drive. The toolless units usually have these little side pieces that pop off, and you set your drive in there and line the holes up, and then you pop these back in, snap them in there, and now they've got little rubber isolators at each corner to keep any vibration from the hard drives down. All right, so that one is in. Let's get the other one in there. All right, here's drive number 2. This toolless system is definitely the way to go. No messing around with screws. All right, we put these in, and like I said, if you use data drives that you've already had in service, you will lose the data on there, so make sure all of your data is backed up. Of course, if you're starting with brand new drives, it doesn't really matter. Okay. All right, so now I'll come up here and I will download the latest TNAS PC application, and then I'll get it running. All right, I've got the Ethernet cable plugged in, the power is plugged in. We'll turn the unit on. There is a power light. Let me get the TNAS PC up and running. And after the TNAS PC finds it, right there's the new unit, we'll go ahead and select it. Right over here you click on login, and now we get our first time to access the unit. And that takes just a few moments because it has to download the bootloader from the server. Now we're doing the initialization. Using incompatible desktop hard drive or an unhealthy old drive is likely to cause slow response. So, like I said, you want to start with brand new fresh hard drives if you can. I'm going to do the default, and it gives me a warning, all data will be deleted. I don't care because I already wiped the drives. They are new drives within the last year, but I was using them in another NAS unit. So I made sure the data was backed up somewhere else and then completely wiped them. And now we'll do the TOS, which stands for TNAS operating system. And this will take a little while to do, maybe 15 minutes. Now after your operating system is installed, part of the RAID process for the first time, and it just happens once when you first get your system running, is the drives have to synchronize. And depending upon the size of your drives, it can take several hours. Now these are 6 terabyte drives here, and they took, gosh, probably 6 hours, maybe 6-7 hours. It's one of those things you just fire it up and walk away and come back later and check on it. But a really large drive can take quite a while. Okay, so now let's take a look at some of the specs. Okay, so what I've done here is I pulled the information from the specification pages and lined everything up so we can sort of compare apples to apples. So let's walk through this real quick here. On the left, we've got the F2-210, and on the right, we've got the F2-212. I did confirm with TerraMaster that the 212, as I suspected, is the replacement for the 210. So first of all, let's look at the top. The main thing that I notice here right off the bat is the processor. We've got, they're both Realtek units, but the old unit was an RTD1296. Now we've got an RTD1619B. Architecture, we had ARM V8 64-bit before, and now we've got ARM V8.2, Cortex A55, both 64 bits. The frequency, now we've got a little bit of an uptick here on the F2-212. We've got 1.7 versus 1.4, so we do have a little bit faster of a processor. The memory there is 1 gigabyte. It is on soldered onto the board, so you can't change it, you can't expand it. It's 1 gig, and that's what you get. I believe the F4-212 allows you to increase memory. I'll have to confirm that, but at least I know on the 212 you cannot. Scrolling down a little more here, we do have a little bit of an increase on the capacity of the hard drives, so we've got up to 22 terabytes times 2 on the 212 versus 20 terabytes times 2 on the 210. Of course, at 20 terabytes, that's pretty huge, going up to 22. A jump, but not huge. Scrolling down a little bit, the other change is our file system. Before we had ext4 only on the 210, and now we've got BTRFS or ButterFS, or however you want to pronounce that. It's a new file system that is more modern, more up-to-date, more flexible, more forgiving than the old ext4. Not that there's anything horribly wrong with the ext4, but now we support BTRFS or ButterFS. Moving down, let's see if there's anything else that stands out. Looks like the new unit is actually a little louder maybe, but at these levels you can't really tell that much difference. I had the fan all the way up here on the 212 a little bit ago, and it's pretty quiet. So I would not be too concerned about fan noise. Looks like the efficiency has improved by a little over 5 watts. So of course anything that's more efficient is certainly better. The warranty is the same, 2 years. And it looks like the other thing here, we've got T-RAID, which is a TerraMaster sort of method of, usually on your RAID, when you put a group of disks together, they have to all be the same size. If they're not, your RAID will default to the smallest disk. So you want to match your disk sizes with the old standard methods of RAID. Here we've got T-RAID though. This allows you to use multiple disk sizes in a RAID array. On a 2-disk system like the 212, that's not anything that's terribly exciting, but when you get into your multiple disks, that sounds like something that might be a little more interesting. The rest of this is not terribly exciting here comparing the two. There's nothing that really stands out. So those are the main specifications. Okay, so looking at the unit here after you've logged into it, they've got a cool app center over here, and there are all these little applications that you can download and install. Do all kinds of cool stuff. Actually, there are more here. If you click the all, you can see everything. Multimedia servers, databases, all kinds of stuff here. There's an iTunes server, Plex media server. Of course, that's pretty popular. But each one of these you can download. Now, when you do that, if you look down here in the corner, it says security isolation mode. When you're in security isolation mode, your system is basically disconnected from the internet, which means you don't have any outside access. And when you try to install these, it won't install them because it's not allowed to connect to the internet. So you have to get out of security isolation mode, which requires a reboot to go into or out of it. And when you're out of security isolation mode, you can download your little apps here. And talking a little more about the security isolation mode, so you go over here to the control panel, and you want to go down to the security section, which is under general settings. And security isolation mode, again, it disconnects your system from the internet. So if you want to do updates, firmware updates, things like that, you have to do that manually. You have to download it manually onto your hard drive and then push it. Otherwise, you can access it automatically. The system will update. Problem with that is some people are concerned, and there was a problem a while back with a lot of NAS manufacturers where people could get into your system and do some unpleasant things. So they made the security isolation mode an option that basically, again, disconnects your system from the internet so you can't access it. Now, if you do have the security isolation mode disabled, you can get into your phone app and you can actually see your NAS unit here, and it's kind of a cool thing to do. You can download files from it. It's a little slow, so don't think you're going to be downloading gigs and gigs of data from your server over your phone. For me, it's more of a, I need a file or two and I need to download them. It's kind of convenient for that, but otherwise it's not something you're probably going to use too often. Okay, a couple things I want to talk about here on the back. Again, we looked at these USB ports earlier. There's a USB 2.0 and a USB 3.0. Now I've got an external hard drive plugged in for additional storage. It seems a little strange that you've got a NAS unit with storage and you can plug in something for more storage, but hey, it works. Now the second thing I did here, you can actually use these with a Wi-Fi connection, so you don't have to use the Ethernet if you've got the right type of Wi-Fi adapter here, and that's what I've got. This is a Linksys adapter, and it works quite well. So on your home screen, you can go to Home, then Network, the Network tab there, and these are all of my available Wi-Fi networks, and you can log in. Now there is a list of devices, the Wi-Fi adapters that you can use. Not any old Wi-Fi adapter will work, so the one I've got just happens to work, which is good. So I connected to it, and it is slower than moving things over Ethernet, which is no surprise, but that does give you an option for connecting to your device if an Ethernet cable is not convenient. And the speeds, of course, will depend on which adapter you're using and what sort of access point or router you're connecting to, what sort of speed you get there. So there are quite a few variables there on what speed you'll get. The real limitations, though, are, of course, the hard drives that you use. You will only be able to go up to a certain speed, and we'll talk about that here next. So just for an example here, I'm using the Wi-Fi adapter there, and what I'll do here is I'll move a 2.1 gig file from the NAS unit over to my test system, which is going to be on a solid state drive. And we can see the speeds there. Let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. And that's about as fast as I've seen so far transferring data. Nothing to get too excited about, but like I said, at least you do have the option to use a Wi-Fi connection. And I'll just cancel that. And if we go the other way, let's move a similar sized file. Copy it and move it over here just to see what kind of speeds we get. It'll probably be a little slower, yeah. Yeah, you're not going to get anywhere near the speed you'll get over the Ethernet. And that adapter I'm using is several years old, so all of those things have an effect on this, the transfer speed. Now, if we connect the Ethernet back up, and I disconnected the Wi-Fi adapter there, we'll go ahead and move some data back and forth, and you can see the speed difference. Okay, so this is going from the NAS unit over to my solid state drive on my main test system. And these are about the speeds I see, anywhere from 110 to about 115 megabytes per second on the transfer. And if we go the other direction, which is from my test system back over to the NAS unit, let's do a quick copy, paste, just so you can see what it looks like. It's usually a little bit slower. And again, things will vary with your network traffic and which hard drives you're using. And one thing I do want to mention, you want to keep your data in more than one place. Now, even though the data here, the way I've got it set up, is redundant, so everything that's on this drive is mirrored over to this drive. So if something happens to one of the drives, I have another copy there, and you can rebuild the array when you replace the drive. However, if something happens to this unit, there's a fire, a flood, somebody drop kicks it down the stairs, all of my data here could potentially be gone. So anything that's important, keep it in more than one place or more than one NAS unit. Now, if you go to the TerraMaster website, you can read up all about the F2-212. And again, this is more of an upgrade to the F2-210, so we will probably see that one go away as it is replaced by the F2-212. But when you go to the website here, you can read up about all the differences, which we pretty much covered between this and the F2-210. They've made a lot of little improvements here along the development path. One thing I want to point out is, let me bring up another tab here. They've got something new that they've developed, and it's called T-RAID. And if you know anything about RAID, you know you've got the different levels of RAID. But what they've done, and it doesn't really apply to the F2-212 here so much, because this only has 2 disks. So the T-RAID really applies more to the units that have multiple bays, 4 and 5 bays with the multiple disks. So basically, though, what they do, and I'm not going to go into too much detail here, the T-RAID takes disks of different size, because usually with your RAID, when you build a RAID array, you use the same size disks. Ideally, if you don't, it will default to the smallest disk size. So what you do is make sure you use the largest capacity that you can on a regular RAID, but you use the same disk size to populate all of the bays. T-RAID, though, they've come up with a way to use multiple disk sizes. So in this example here, we've got a 1 terabyte, a 2 terabyte, 4, 8, and 10, and they show you that traditionally with RAID 5, your available space would be 4 terabytes with 21 terabytes wasted. However, with the T-RAID, you take that up to 15 terabytes of usable space, available space, and only 10 terabytes wasted. So there's a definite advantage to using their T-RAID methodology. I have not used it, so I can't really comment on how it functions, how good it is, how bad it is. I'll have to get a unit that has more bays before I can do that and experiment. But they have a nice description here on their page that goes over what T-RAID is, how it works, how it functions, and it seems to be a pretty good idea. Like I said, though, I've not been able to test it personally, so I can't really vouch for it. The other thing that's nice here is TerraMaster has a series of videos here that are available. So if you have a question, how to update your TOS, how to configure a file cluster, how to set the SSD cache, how to create virtual disk, all of these things are answered here in these little short videos, and they're really nice. I've looked at a few of them, and I've used a few of them when I had questions. So that's another nice feature that TerraMaster offers. All right, pricing right now, the F2-212 comes in at $169.99, and again, that is just for the unit itself. There are no hard drives. You still need to supply your hard drives. But for an entry-level unit that allows your home network to store data, everybody on your home network can access this to back up their photos and documents. It's a nice little unit. So I would give this the Overclockers Club Gold Award. This is Chris with Overclockers Club. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.